All right, welcome back to another video. Today's video, I'm going to be talking about how to replace your, for lack of a better word, neutral safety switch, also known as the MLPS or DTR switch. So the problem I was having on my car is a minor issue. My reverse lights did not work. I'll show you here. This is what the switch looks like. It mounts on the side of the transmission. Usually has around 11 pins. Basically, this does two things. It tells the car when it's in neutral or park, so it can start. That way it won't allow you to start in gear, just like any transmission in any car has had for a million years. But in this case, it also tells the computer what gear it's in. So it has digital outputs for the computer and analog outputs for the neutral safety switch and the reverse lights. So in my case, the car started fine. You know, symptoms of this is a car that won't start. If it thinks it's not in neutral or park, it will not let you start the car. Like I said, my reverse lights didn't work, and I was able to trace it back to the switch here. The reverse light circuit is a very easy circuit. There is a black with a pink wire that runs basically from the switch to the backup lights. If you don't have voltage at your backup lights, you test the harness. There's a couple connectors in the trunk that you could check to make sure that you don't have voltage there, but it's best to check the voltage coming out of this switch here. So it's going to be a little bit of different diagnostics for your car depending on what model you have, but I'm really here to kind of focus on the actual procedure to change this out once you've diagnosed that that's the problem. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get this pulled in the garage. I'm going to get it put up on, jack up the front end as high as I can, get it put on some jack stands. You do need to block the rear wheels. The whole procedure will have to be done in neutral. So we're going to set our emergency brake, we're going to block our tires, and we're going to get it safely on jack stands so it's safe to work under it. Also, we will be working around the exhaust, so you want to make sure the engine is completely cooled down. Otherwise, you will more than likely burn yourself. All right, so we've got the car up on jack stands under the frame. Need to get some light and be ready to go underneath. But real quick, I'll show you, here's the part number that we're using. And this part number is used on a bunch of Ford vehicles with the 4R70W, 70E transmission, 70W. So, okay, technically, you need this special alignment tool. Okay, and how this alignment tool works is after you pay like $300 for a piece of metal, you stick it in here and it fits in this little plastic groove. What that does is that aligns it in neutral. But you really don't actually need this tool. That's what the Ford techs use. You don't actually need it because, as you can see, there's a little mark. So as I mentioned previously, we're going to do this whole procedure in neutral. So once you get your car up in the air, go ahead, turn the key forward, put it in neutral, and then turn the key backwards. When we remove this, we want it to be in neutral, and when we put this on, it's already in that position. So as you can see here, there's a little line right here and a little line on the black plastic. And those have to line up. As long as those are lined up, it's in neutral. So we will slide this. You'll see once we're underneath, we'll take the two bolts out, slide the old one off the shaft, put this one onto the shaft, put the two bolts loosely back in, and we will rotate it with the gear shifter in neutral to where those little lines are still lined up just like that. And as you can see, it says neutral right here. So it's that easy. So you really don't need this tool. I would imagine the older ones didn't have those lines, and that's why they made this tool. Very expensive tool, and all it is a little piece of cutout metal. Pretty silly. All right, so here we are under the car. If you look over the top of the catalytic converter, or straight up from the transmission pan, you can see the switch. So there's two options. You can either try to disconnect the harness first, or you can just unbolt the switch and then pull it down and disconnect it. And that's what I'm going to do. And then I'll reconnect it, put it back in place. So take our 8mm socket, break these loose, and we're you want to make sure the car's in neutral before you get under here. So like I said, on the older cars, the actual gear shift lever is connected on the outside of the switch. On these newer cars, it's not. So now that we've got both bolts out, we just have to work on prying this off of here. It's probably going to require both hands because it's been on here a while. A little bit of PB Blaster would be your friend. And there we go. So slide that off. Bring it down a little bit, and that exposes our connector here. You just push this tab. Alright, so I've got it out. Putting it back on, it's just the reverse or removal. We're just going to plug our harness in right here. We're going to wiggle this back up into place. And then push this onto the shaft. If it's rusty, you'll want to go ahead and clean it up. The shaft is keyed, so it will only fit in these two little grooves you see on the top and bottom there. So make sure you line that up with the key, slide it on, and then, like I said, once we get it on, we'll kind of wiggle it around to get it into position. Alright, once we get the new one in place, I'm going to go ahead and start your bolts back down. Don't want to tighten them all the way, just snug them down. You can see now, we can rotate this out of position. I mean, and just a hair off that line, and it's not going to be correct. So even though you can just rotate it just a little bit, it has to be right on there. So you need to be looking at it straight on. And once we have that line perfectly lined up, that's when we will go ahead and tighten our bolts down all the way. And when you're tightening them down, make sure it does not come out of adjustment. We've got it where we want it. We'll go ahead and tighten these down. Alright, that's all there is to that underneath the car. Now we'll go ahead and climb out of here and make sure everything's working like it should. Alright, so the first thing we want to do is obviously we want to make sure our car starts. Put it in park. Okay. Good, turn it off. Put it in neutral. Make sure it starts. Okay. And obviously it should not start in any other gear. So while we're in reverse, we'll go check. Our lights are working. So we fixed the problem that we were trying to fix. That's all there is to it. Alright, so here's the old switch. From the looks of it, I'd say it's already been replaced once before, and this was the junkyard part. That's my guess by the writing. But that's all there is to it. I'll leave a link to the part in the description below if you want to buy it. If you have any questions, leave a comment. Be sure to like the video if it helped you out. Until next time, we'll see you later.